Hello and welcome into the Touchdown NFL pod. My name's Lee. We're here with Tom and Willow as always. And today, well, there's only one game left, isn't there, as we've just been saying. So we're going to preview the Super Bowl for us with the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers taking on each other in Las Vegas. Guys, how are we doing? It's been a long season, but we're here. We're almost there at the Super Bowl. How are we both doing?
It's been a long season. I've been treated to a glimpse of the future. This is the Falcons minute. Here we go. Raheem Morris has been unveiled as the head coach. He had his press conference, so I enjoyed watching that. That's the first and last time the Falcons are going to be talked about on this podcast. But apart from that, I'm kind of ready to see where this all goes. It's the more I think about it, the more I can see. Well, not to spoil anything, but the more I can see ways for both teams to win. And I'm quite interested to see how this one goes. So yeah, otherwise fine. Busy, getting by. So yeah, nothing exciting, I'm afraid.
It's been similar times for me actually. Again, we won't obviously hijack the whole podcast, but Jim Harbaugh last week, Joe Ortiz yesterday, for their opening press conferences, both very impressive. So yeah, looking forward to next season already, which is a lot better than we were doing a few weeks ago. So we'll just say that. But Dave, how about you, mate? You okay?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, man. I feel like it's been a kind of really long build up. Like I don't know why, but like the last 2 weeks have felt a lot longer than like other 2 week periods for the Super Bowl. Yeah, it's also strange that like for a season where we've had like so many kind of new teams kind of come up and kind of announce themselves. We've got a team that's playing in its second Super Bowl in the last 5 years and they've been to 3 consecutive NFC Championship games and the reigning Super Bowl champion. So it's like, well, like, the kind of teams that we all kind of expected to be here back in August are all now here again. So it's been a bit strange. Do you know what it is? I was thinking about this yesterday. Like as a player, I couldn't do the 2 weeks. Of if I was playing in a Super Bowl, I don't think I could do it. Like by like Saturday, particularly this week with the media and like all the kind of nonsense. Like I don't want to get too off topic, but like, could you imagine like for a Champions League final, you turn up on the Monday, and then you've got like the world's media asking you the most ridiculous questions, like Brock Purdy and Lee Harvey Oswald, like have a resemblance. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm
weird,
just
right?
thinking, like, yeah, like you're days away from the biggest game of your life, especially for him. Like you're days away from the biggest game of your life. I'd be like, listen, let me just train, kind of focus on this. I'll do like one media appearance on a Thursday or something, and then let's just play the game instead of like kind of all this like I guess the NFL kind of likes all the insanity, but from a player's point of view, I'd be like by like 9 a.m. on Sunday morning, I'd be like, let's just play now. Like I'm tired of kind of the waiting.
Yeah, some players really thrive in that environment, don't they? But then some, it's just not for you. I guess like anything, isn't it? Some people like the spotlight, some people shy away from it. It's a very difficult environment for some people, and compared to like a famous president killer, it's not the greatest thing in the world, I guess, for anyone, is it?
Like between that and a German journalist asked Andy Reid if he believed in the conspiracy theories that the Taylor Swift Travis Kelce relationship was being used to prop up the Democratic votes ahead of this year. Do you know what I mean? Like man's there to coach a football game. Like why? Like why bother with this? Like do you know what it is? Like I could imagine like football managers would probably just walk out at that point. You know what I mean? Or just like give you like the death stare. Like Andy Reid's kind of such a nice guy. I think he just says, no, I haven't really given it much thought at all, and then moved on. But like, could you imagine like asking Alex Ferguson that question? Like, you know what I mean? Ahead of like Champions League final.
That's a lifetime. Yeah.
Like so there's. I feel like it's like I'm just ready for the game now. Like instead of kind of all the insanity that surrounds it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I suppose just to round off like the coaching talk from the three of us, I guess you're happy with Ben Johnson. Just to digress even further a little second.
Yeah, like it was weird how it's kind of played out. I suppose the thing with it is ultimately he like I've said it before, like it's a pretty good gig he has with Detroit. Like you
100%.
you got because I think the one thing you were saying there about people being in the spotlight, like because Dan Campbell's kind of such this like extraordinary charismatic figure, nobody else really ever like has to be in that spotlight or has to be in that kind of like media focus in terms of the coaches. It's Dan Campbell, it's Jared Goff, and then it's the other star players on that team. So from Ben Johnson's point of view, like I was saying to people, like might not want to necessarily be a head coach and kind of that comes with all the baggage and all the kind of extra stuff that you've got to do as a head coach. He might just like running an offense. And if that's what he likes, then that's what he likes. I still think he'll give it a crack at some point, but it was telling that he turned down Carolina last year. Like he played for the Tar Heels. He's from Carolina. He grew up as a Panthers fan. And obviously Tepper's, the one thing I suppose you can kind of half tip your cap to Tepper to is, it's a blank check pretty much in Carolina. Like he's not, it's not like he's going to scrimp and save. He wants to be successful. He's gone about it in the wrong ways, but you're going to get a lot of money. You think of what he's done with Matt Rule and this, that, and the other. Like the money that they've thrown around there is a lot of money. And for him to turn that down, I felt like that was probably a sign that he's probably going to be like really picky over which jobs. Because this one felt like a real fit. You're probably going to get Caleb Williams or Drake May. So you get a new quarterback, some decent wide receivers and running backs to work with. But as I said, like it comes with a lot of baggage. I think that's the one thing with like this head coaching cycle. You need more than just an X's and O's person. Like all these NFL coaches know their X's and O's inside out. Like they've worked in either the college or the NFL system basically their entire adult lives. So they're all going to know how to game plan, how to work with players. But like, I think you've got to be that kind of leader, that big character, that big personality. And some people might not be cut out for that. Like Brandon Staley probably wasn't cut out for that. Like that wasn't his bag, and he'll go back to being a defensive coordinator. He'll probably be a decent defensive coordinator somewhere down the line. It's just so I think for Ben Johnson, it's nice to see him back because continuity is king, and to have both coordinators come back and then everybody else stay together as well is kind of huge. Because I thought one of them were definitely gone, but it's nice to see the band back together and see what they can do again next season.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think you're right. I think I agree with pretty much everything that you said there. So let's move away from talking about our coaches and talk about this game then. So let's talk about the two teams' seasons as we kind of move through. Let's start with the Chiefs. Considering they're in my team's division, I'll kick this one off. I feel like with the Chiefs, and I've written a little bit about this for our preview articles that both myself and Willow have done this week coming out tomorrow and Friday. I feel like this season has perfectly encapsulated how the Chiefs brass have sort of altered and evolved this team over time. We talked a lot last year about them using a lot of heavier personnel groupings with likes of Noah Gray, Blake Bell, becoming supplementary weapons using 13 personnel, a heck of a lot, and moving away from what they were with Tyreek Hill and using like a lot of speed and offense. They kind of became like the complete opposite of what they were doing, which allowed Reid to just toy with people because obviously defenses would match with base personnel, and then he could just pass out heavy personnels, and it just played havoc with them because that's kind of what he does. Obviously, this year moving away from that a little bit more, and they've become a defense first team for me. And Mahomes' average depth of target has become like hilariously low for someone of Patrick Mahomes' caliber with his arm talent and things like that. He's actually ranked 38th out of 44 with just 6.9 yards per throw, which is ridiculous. He's this guy who's got this massive arm. He can throw into tiny windows, and he can be a superhero every time you want him to be. And that's all fine and well, but they've just not used him like that. They've made him be a decision maker, being a point guard for this offense, and allowed them to lean on this defense. Obviously, we talked about it. All three of us were couldn't wait to talk about Steve Spagnuolo last week, and they've just become an absolutely elite defense, a really young defense, and it's one that can lead them for a long, long time. In a way that Mahomes actually become the game manager that people are accusing Brock Purdy of being in some senses. But I guess, like I said, with all the past and things like that, it paints people's perceptions and how they view Patrick Mahomes. Like I said before, it's a defense-led team in my view. So it kind of reminds me a little bit of like how Alex Ferguson has managed to kind of churn Manchester United but remain successful during that time, which obviously Willow you'll be very, very familiar with. But yeah, that's kind of how I see it. Really, they've evolved, but managed to stay the same. Even though this was their season of being a bit wobbly, and they did have a wobble throughout the middle of the season. But like you said at the beginning, they're still here again, and it's kind of soul destroying, especially as someone in the division. But what do you guys think, as outside looking in, about the Chiefs season?
Yeah, I mean, you go crack on. No, you go first.
Thomas. No, that's all right.
All right, man. Okay. from an outsider's perspective, obviously, I don't watch. I watch one game in full a week, and then I watch Red Zone, and then the sort of catch up the highlights the day after. So the Chiefs are always either a Red Zone team that are always on Red Zone. historically, or somebody that I'm catching up on. And the biggest thing I can say about the Chiefs this year is that they felt very different. For all, I mean, you summed it up in ways that I would never be able to sum it up because I'm not that person. But as far as I can see, the biggest change has been moving away from Eric Bieniemy as the offensive coordinator and going back to Matt Nagy as the offensive coordinator. I'm not a Matt Nagy fan. I thought he did fine by and large with Chicago kind of early on, but he's very clearly not going to be somebody who's going to be super successful by himself. He's very much a product of the tree. And I was quite bullish on Bieniemy in Washington this year, and I still feeling he did well enough to kind of warrant having a job next season rather than just being cast out. But that's quite a big change considering just how successful the Reid, Bieniemy, Mahomes trifecta has been over the last sort of 4 or 5 years. If you're taking away what part of what is a very impressive offensive sort of makeup, you can bring back somebody who's familiar with the system, but it's just not going to be the same. You're not going to get the same voice, and you're going to have just a completely different pair of eyes. And I think what we've seen from the Chiefs offense this season is them try to adapt or try to become refamiliarize themselves with themselves, if that kind of makes sense, or try to feel a little bit more comfortable. What we've seen as a result of that is that they've had to lean on the defense in some instances, and as you rightly pointed out, and as we talked about last week, the defense has been superb in a lot of games. There have been some worrying games for the Chiefs this season. I always go back to the sort of the Broncos game, the Broncos where they were sort of setting off fireworks and parading their one win like it was the biggest win in the world. As this one moment, because like a couple of weeks before they just conceded 70 points or something. So like there were those kind of moments, but at the end of the day, when push came to shove, they just clicked and got back to it, and then they just kind of went, oh yeah, we're actually really good. That's the season's just been a strange one for me because they're clearly not the best team, and they haven't been the best team in the AFC. Sorry, for the course of 18 games, but they've just got the makeup to make up for it. They've been there, they've done it, they've got the wherewithal to overcome their own deficiencies and find ways to improve both in games and in between games, and that comes down to just exceptional coaching. It comes down to incredible mentality, and that's why they're here again. They just know how to do it now. That's best I can put it without sort of going on and on and on. But they've overcome themselves, and that's an incredible. That's an admirable thing in itself, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. Say what you reckon.
Yeah, I think the big thing is the mentality thing. I think more than anything else, like Thomas is like, if we're taking it over an 18-game season, they weren't the best team they were the third best team in the AFC by record. Ultimately, over 18 weeks of football, kind of those weird performances or those really good performances kind of even themselves out, and you kind of work out where you are by and large. Sometimes you'll get the odd year where, like for example, the Giants last year, but realistically speaking, you kind of know where you are and where you stand after 17 games. I think the big thing with the Chiefs is like they're kind of built for like playoff football though. Like again, go back to the Patriots kind of comparison. They got Harrison Butker, who's as good as any kicker in the league. They got an outstanding defense. They can run the ball. And as I said, they've got a game manager quarterback. Like, this is the thing. I remember watching the Brady documentary, and he kind of scoffed when people said he was a game manager in his early days. Well, of course, he gets his hands on the ball more than anybody else. His job was to pass it to his players, not put the ball in harm's way, and make sure that they didn't make mistakes on offense. Like, you are managing the game on the field for the head coach. And that's what Mahomes has become. Like, he's so excellent at just evading sacks. He doesn't put the ball in harm's way. Like, there's not many turnover-worthy plays he's had this playoffs. He's able to find Kelsey on those kind of big third down plays that they needed to. Certainly last time against Baltimore. So I feel like they've just become a very kind of solid playoff team that's then got kind of sprinkles of magic. Like, they're still capable of Kelsey doing something special, or Mahomes doing something special, or the defensive players like we saw in the AFC Championship game when they punched the ball out at the goal line. Like, they're capable of those kind of magic moments that can tilt the game and take it away from you, or kind of take momentum away from you. Like, you go back to that play where Snead punches the ball out. Like if Zay Flowers scores, suddenly that place is jumping, it's game on again, and they made that kind of big play. So I feel like they've got kind of the nuts and bolts of what it takes to win playoff football with those players that are still capable of taking a game over when they need to. Which I think is what makes them so good. Don't get me wrong, they're beatable. Every team's beatable in the NFL, and like say for example, if there's a load of drops on Sunday, then we'll be talking about that, and well, that was their fatal flaw. Every team has a flaw that just happens to be theirs. That ultimately their wide receivers aren't that great, but I feel like this is probably where like the next evolution of teams comes from. Like people always say Brady helped his teams take contracts, and he did. Like they always brought in like a lot of kind of veteran guys, or they made trades, or kind of brought in veteran free agents. But a lot of it was on the defensive side. You look at you go back to when Brady became established, the second half of it was Gronk, kind of Edelman and Amendola, who were kind of solid wide receivers, but they weren't, Tyreek Hill. You know what I mean? Like they weren't of that ilk. And then the rest was kind of your Brandon LaFells and your Chris Hogans and these people. And I feel like it might just be a natural evolution where it's very difficult to have a quarterback on a really big contract as well as having like a wide receiver number one on a really big contract. So ultimately that's their weakness. But like we've seen teams win Super Bowls before with not necessarily great wide receiver cores, because I think everything else still works really well. And as I said, if you can still make the plays and get the guys schemed open, ultimately, if you trust them enough to catch the ball, they should be able to do that. So I think it's a different Chiefs team. I disagree with this idea that people are saying it's the worst Chiefs team, because for me, the Mahomes' first MVP year, what was the worst Chiefs team? Because that defense was 32nd. Like, they couldn't get a stop to save their lives. Like, you go back to that AFC Championship game, they had so many third and longs on that final drive, and Brady killed them on it. Like, this is a much better all-round team on special teams and on defense. So I feel like, they're kind of more built for the playoffs. And I think the other thing as well, they got the experience. Like, if you've been here, won it and done it, like, this situation doesn't phase you. These kind of difficult moments don't phase you. Like, teams need to go through that, and they have that mentality, and I think that's kind of what makes them so good in these situations.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's that ability to raise yourself, isn't it, in the big moments?
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, like L'Jarius Sneed doing that. Like you say, that's a completely different game. Could be a completely different Super Bowl, really, if both of these teams kind of didn't swing their way out of trouble. So both teams have got this, but the Chiefs in particular, having, like you say, been there, done it, won it. It's just one of those things, isn't it, where you just think any moment Mahomes can just raise his game just at a flick of a switch. And Kelsey's kind of done it throughout the season as well, isn't he? Where he's not had a great season, but then throughout the playoffs he's been great.
Yeah, he's made big plays. It feels very Real Madrid like. Like Real Madrid, how many years do we see, like, particularly in the group stage of the Champions League? Oh, they won't win it this year, and then suddenly they kind of just find ways and moments of magic to win kind of one-off games. And that's ultimately what the NFL playoffs is. Like, you don't necessarily have to be great. You just got to find a way of winning in January. And I feel like the Chiefs, like, I don't know how Chiefs fans will view this team, like, and who knows how, like, the Super Bowl historians will view this team if they win it. But like, the chances are, like, this isn't a team that'll get compared to like the 85 Bears or the 72 Dolphins or whatever, like some of those kind of famous iconic teams. But I feel like I think that's what makes them so good, is just that kind of mentality of like, we're the Kansas City Chiefs, we know how to get the job done. I don't know if the other team does know how to get the job done. And I think that's kind of certainly what made the difference against Buffalo and Baltimore, I think.
Yeah, and in the recent matchups as well, the Chiefs have got the up hand in terms of their matchups against the 49ers as well. And, Kyle Shanahan, the 49ers have come up short in recent memory as well. So, like you say, it seems like that battle between someone who's done it, a team that's done it, and the team that, or people that have fallen short a little bit.
Yeah.
So let's move on then and just flip over to the actual favourites for the game. 1.5 favourites at the time of recording.
Is that real? Oh my god!
Yeah. I had to check it myself today because we were writing these articles, and I was like, I'm just going to double check that because I had heard it, and I was like, but 1.5 obviously is not it's not a lot, is it? But yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? Where it doesn't really mean a great deal, does it? But 49ers are favoured. That is the line. Willow, I'll kind of turn this over to you to begin with because you've written this 49ers preview on their season. How do you feel like their season's gone?
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like whenever we do this podcast, obviously we do it week to week, so there's going to be an element of of recency bias that sneaks into what we're talking about. I do remember us sort of speaking last week and being quite down on the 49ers sort of chances on the basis that we didn't really know what the situation was. But then kind of looking back and putting together the preview for this weekend, they've had a really good season.
Yeah.
They were a really good team. Like they started 5-0. They won 4 of their opening 5 games by multiple scores, and the only reason they didn't win the second game by multiple scores is because Sean McVay decided to kick a last-second field goal to cover the spread or whatever. And it was three losses in a row just before the bye week. I think there were questions starting to be asked. A lot of injuries at the time, if memory serves. I do remember one very prominent NFL writer saying that they're going to be fine because this happens to them all the time. He's on this podcast right now, actually. But lo and behold, they were fine because they just went on another tear. Obviously, lost two of their final 3 games. One of them they benched everybody to keep everyone fit. The other one they got blown out by the Ravens at a time when everyone was getting blown out by the Ravens. And then obviously the playoffs. It's kind of one of those. How much of it is nerves? How much of it is rust? But by and large, they're just a really good team. They've got a very good. They've got a lot of defensive, really good defensive players. They've got a really solid. I mean, in terms of superstars on the offense, like I saw a tweet in the week which was it was in relation to Cam Newton. It's like at any point if you put Cam Newton on this 49ers team, his 4th choice or his 4th read would be his best option at Carolina, just as a comparison between the two sort of situations. And Brock Purdy's come in and he's been pretty good. I mean, he's a MVP finalist, right? I don't know how much stock you want to put into the MVP thing because it's always a quarterback and possibly Christian McCaffrey. I don't. That's a conversation for later on. But the fact that he's in that conversation kind of says more than it doesn't. He's had some ups and downs, as you would expect from a former 7th round pick. But when, as I said earlier, push comes to shove, game on the line, give him the ball, and he's going to put together a drive that wins you the game or puts you in a winning position. They've had a really good team. The problem that they have is that they are not going to be able to escape their own kind of recent history. They've not won a Super Bowl since 1994. They've been to 3 Super Bowls since then. Obviously, the most recent one they had a lead over the Chiefs and saw it dwindle away as in sort of a heartbreaking fashion, I'm sure, for those of a 49ers persuasion. They will always have to overcome. They're going to have to overcome their own questions. Like, yes, you are good enough. Very clearly, you are good enough. But are you capable of proving that? Or are you just going to allow the team that wins it all the time to win it all the time because they win it all the time, kind of thing? That's where I think the questions about the 49ers come from. In relation to the sort of the odds or whatever, I saw today that somebody has tweeted over the course of the last week that against all odds the 49ers are here to be responded with, you've been favoured in every single game you've played this season. What odds have you overcome to get here? So yeah, the very favourable ones apparently. It doesn't surprise me that they're the favourites, just purely because they have really good players in every position, and logic would suggest that in any other scenario they're going to win this game, but they're just playing against a team that wins it all the time. So that's where the questions creep in. So it's been a really good year for them. It's not going to count for anything if they don't win this game. And I feel as if it's going to be a more, even though it's been an incredibly impressive performance, there are going to be far more, or the questions about whether or not they are capable of winning the Super Bowl in the next couple of years will become louder and stronger. And then all of a sudden you're talking, I don't want to get too far into myself because I'm way over here, but it's like, can you do it with this coach? Can you do it with this GM? And then that's a whole different conversation. But listen, they're here for a reason. They're the best team in the NFC, like both on paper and in practice. Let's see what happens.
Dave, what do you reckon? Because you obviously saw the 49ers last week firsthand, as we all did, but obviously you spend time watching the NFC much more than I do.
Do you know what it is? It's really strange. I feel like the 49ers might sound stupid, but you look at their performances over the last 2 months, it feels like they peaked kind of around Thanksgiving time. It felt like before that Ravens defeat, they looked almost invincible. You think what they did to Philadelphia, in wet weather conditions, which you think historically for 49ers quarterbacks and the 49ers as a team going East Coast to a rabid fan base away from home against, what was still then a pretty strong team. Like Philly hadn't kind of collapsed yet. Like that was some performance. It was the kind of performance you think, well, these guys can win it all. It's been strange though the last few weeks. Like they lost to the Baltimore, obviously. Then they beat Washington. They arrested everybody against LA, and then kind of snuck past the Packers and Lions. So I feel like I'm just unsure what they are. Like, are they the team that like destroyed the Cowboys and destroyed the Eagles like earlier this season, or are they the team that kind of just got by two inexperienced teams? Like, I think that's kind of the hard thing at this moment in time. Like they've been brilliant all season, like over a season, they've been excellent. They have been the best team in the NFC. And let's be honest, like over a 3-4 year period, they've probably been the best team in the NFC over that length of span. You look at the consistency they've had and the amount of wins that they've had, like they've been very, very good for a long time, irrespective of really who's a quarterback. Like 2 years ago, they were a drive away from the Super Bowl with Garoppolo, and then obviously this year they're there with Purdy. They've played in the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo and were close to winning it. So like they've been very, very good for a long, long time. I think obviously having continuity of some guys like Nick Bosa and Fred Warner and Teron Armstead and Trent Williams and all these guys that have been there, and Debo and Ayuk and all these people, like they've been a good team for a number of seasons. I think the one thing with them is they're so explosive on offense, which has made them so difficult, I think, for a lot of NFC teams to kind of decode and defend because like they've got so many options. Like you can't ask for an offense with more options. Like Kyle Juszczyk's a legitimate option. He might be the sixth best player on this offense. Do you know what I mean? And then even guys like Juwan Jennings and Elijah Mitchell can come in and make plays for them. So in terms of like the cast that they've got on offense, that's unrivaled. Like every team would give an arm and a leg to have Debo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, Kyle Juszczyk on their team. Like you'd do anything to get that lot on your team. So from that point of view, like they're a great, great team. The sad thing is like you get one game to prove it. You know what I mean? And it's kind of it's the harsh reality of kind of and the brutality of the NFL really is like Thomas said, like if they if they lose on Sunday, like you just got to turn around and shrug your shoulders and say, well, yeah, you guys had another great regular season. You got close, but it wasn't enough, and like I think like that's like the world where they're living in now, where it feels Super Bowl or bust. But yeah, like they're a great team. I think the one issue maybe certainly in the last 2 weeks is that like teams have been able to run the football on them. Like Aaron Jones did it, Montgomery and Gibbs did it. Like okay, Pacheco's one man in terms of the Lions had a tandem. The Chiefs don't necessarily have like a running back duo, but Pacheco's still a very good running back. So I think there's big questions to answer. But I think more for the 49ers is just like mentality. Like, can they deal with the pressure of Sunday? Like for the Chiefs, if they win, if they don't win, kind of doesn't really matter because they've already like they've got validation for their football program, with 2 Super Bowls already in the bag of this kind of 5 year period. The 49ers don't have that validation. They haven't got that kind of tangible success to turn around and say, look, we did it right and we did it our way and it's been successful because we've ultimately got the Super Bowl. And so I feel like that's why the pressure's like massive on them. Or like yeah, like I don't know, it would feel like I hate saying it because you end up in kind of Cowboys territory. It would feel like a failure if the 49ers don't win the Super Bowl. And as Thomas said, like it's been a long, long time, like for a team that kind of for a generation of fans or like the generation before me were kind of the team, like for them to have not won one for so long and to be close on so many different occasions kind of feels a bit strange. And I do think like and as I said, you just know on Monday morning if they do lose, like people are going to be coming after Kyle Shanahan or Brock Purdy and saying, "Well, is Kyle Shanahan just a really good loser? Like he's been close so many different times." And like as I said, I just feel like the pressure just on them feels massive compared to what it does to Kansas City, and I don't know how they'll react to it because the pressure was big on them in the NFC Championship game. In the first half, they didn't turn up at all. So like I don't know like how they react to that. Like in terms of talent, they're talented enough to go and win it. It's just can they kind of prove it to themselves type of thing.
Yeah, no, 100%. I don't know. I'm kind of torn because I feel like they started off on like as a house on fire, like we talked about. They've had the big wins against Philadelphia, they've had wins against Dallas and things like that. But then, like I say, the cracks have maybe shown over the past few weeks. But Brock Purdy just feels like he's like lightning in a bottle at the minute. He just seems to be getting away with a few things. Like we've talked about the errant throws that he makes, the bizarre decisions that he makes, and he just seems to be getting away with it. We'll talk about on next week when we've seen the game whether he's real or not. That with the question for that then. But I'm just thinking, is it kind of all kind of building towards Kyle Shanahan actually finally getting it? Because, like you say, they've got the Avengers on offense. We've talked about, you've both talked about that. You've touched on how multiple they are as well and how much of a problem that is. If it's not now, then when will it be? Because the other thing that I've noticed as well when looking into these two teams in the season is they've not actually got like a great deal of production from their draft class. They drafted 9 players and they've only really had a couple of players that have made any sort of impact. That's Jair Brown there, who was their first pick in the 3rd round. And then Jake Moody, obviously the kicker, who's obviously kicked for them all season. If you don't get good production for draft classes year in, year out, even if you've got the Avengers on offense, eventually that catches up with you. So if they don't win it now, they might be back next year close, but if they don't draft well again, then or get impact from it, then things are going to start to fall apart a little bit and it'll just get further and further away. So I just think now's got to be it for Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah. I think the one thing, like, not to get kind of too far into the long grass with it, but I mean, they're stuck with Purdy to an extent because when people, like, I remember saw a tweet saying, the other week saying, oh, I wonder who Kyle Shanahan's Matthew Stafford will be, but you couldn't afford Stafford and then also have McCaffrey, Debo, Kittle. Like the Rams is like the way they did it was like it was top heavy with like superstars, and then they had, I think, that particular season they had more snaps than any other team from drafted players. So like it was kind of the Avengers and then kind of the 3rd and 4th rounders. They kind of put that like the 49ers can't do that. Like they're kind of stuck with Purdy because like you can't go and trade for like a real top quarterback and then still manage the cap and keep everybody else together. So they're kind of stuck with it. But yeah, like I mean, you just know, like, and it's kind of sad, and like in some ways, like Kyle Shanahan's a great head coach. Like he's excellent. Like not many coaches have head coached 2 teams to a Super Bowl with 2 different quarterbacks in a 5-year period. Like Mike Tomlin's a brilliant head coach. Who knows when he'll get back to the Super Bowl without Roethlisberger? Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like what he's done in San Francisco and John Lynch have done is exceptional. But it's that thing of like, it doesn't count for anything until you win it. Like it's kind of the harsh like brutality of it all, and it's kind of, as I said, like the weird thing is worse teams than the 49ers have won Super Bowls like in the past, and worse teams in future will win Super Bowls than the 49ers. It's just they seem to be in the kind of wrong place at the wrong time where things have gone against them. And it's, I don't know, it's like I says, it just feels like I'm just interested, like, will Purdy feel the pressure of it all? Like, because he can't have thought he would ever play in a Super Bowl. Let's be realistic here. You know what I mean? Like even when he left college at Iowa, like he wouldn't have thought, like, I'll probably have a decent career in the NFL. I'll probably back up, might kind of fill in for players here and there or bounce around different franchises. He would never have ever thought that he would be playing in a Super Bowl and a chance to win the first Super Bowl in 30 odd years for the 49ers. So like I'm intrigued like how he deals with it. Everybody else on the San Francisco team should be okay because they've either been there before, they've been around the league before. But like Purdy's in his 2nd year, and let's be honest, like he shouldn't be here. It's just the maddest story ever. So like that's kind of my thing with on Sunday is like, how does he deal with it? Because I feel like if he's nervy and he's jittery, and some of those errant throws kind of appear, then I don't know. I feel like you could get anything.
Yeah, Steve Young, Joe Montana, and Brock Purdy kind of doesn't have the same
do you know
ring
what I mean?
to it.
Like Hall of Famer. Like he's one win away, one more kind of good game away from being a 49ers legend.
Absolutely.
Like when you think like how big the 49ers are in the Bay Area, obviously the Rams kind of flitted around for so many years. So outside of the Raiders, the 49ers were kind of the team. Like so many people, even people in LA support the 49ers because that was their team when they grew up and because there was no LA team. So like you've got him, like as I said, he's kind of one win, one great performance away from like maybe the best story since like Kurt Warner rocked up undrafted
Yeah.
from NFL Europe, and then wins a Super Bowl. Do you know what I mean? Like that's kind of
Mhm.
the territory we're talking about. Like, it's the kind of thing they would make a film about.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move into then talking about how we think these teams are going to win the game then with their keys to victory. We'll flip it around. We'll talk about the 49ers first. Hey, what about you? What do you think about the 49ers? How are they going to win this game?
I think two things. Like they've got to Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy have got to work out this blitz. I was reading earlier today the Chiefs lead the league in cornerback blitzes and slot blitzes.
Yeah.
And again, cornerback and slot blitzes again are kind of meant to attack teams that have like real condensed formations. The 49ers ironically lead the league in condensed formations as most of the kind of Shanahan McVay offenses do. So they've got to beat that, because I think if they can't beat that blitz and Purdy struggles with the pressure, then I'd think it's going to be a long game for them. Because realistically, you're taking away a massive kind of part of their game. Like I know everyone says McCaffrey, but you've still got to kind of get Ayuk and Samuel involved in the game, just so that then teams can honor the pass, so that then you can use McCaffrey. So I think for them, like Purdy's got to be kind of like so switched on pre-snap. And his offensive line is going to have to help him a ton as well, because he's inexperienced. Like the one thing, like you don't blitz experienced quarterbacks because they kind of seen it all before. But inexperienced quarterbacks might not have seen it all before. And we saw Lamar Jackson struggle with it 2 weeks ago. So I think from the 49ers' point of view, they're going to have to solve that blitz conundrum, and I think it might have to be quick throws and kind of get your guys into space rather than kind of hope for kind of longer developing plays. But it's all going to be done pre-snap, and Purdy's going to have like the best game of his career, kind of IQ wise. And I think the other thing is, I don't see a way how they can win it without Christian McCaffrey being the MVP. Like realistically, I think Purdy's just going to have to you're almost going to have to try and force him out of the game a little bit if you're San Francisco. Like let him settle into the game, because if suddenly you go pass, 3 and out, 3 and out, suddenly the pressure and then you're chasing the game, it becomes so much more difficult. So I think like those are the two things for me in terms of they're going to have to work out how to beat Kansas City's defense and the blitzes, and then they're also going to have to find a way of getting Purdy settled into the game, with whatever kind of layups that they can scheme, and then how the game kind of develops with McCaffrey. If Kyle Shanahan's got like the best 15 plays of his career, he needed them on Sunday first up, because I think the longer it takes to get Purdy settled into the game, the harder it becomes. And the last thing you want to do with a young player, like everyone's looking to him, and technically he should be looking at everybody else, because like you guys are the experienced players. I'm just, I was the last draft pick a year ago. I shouldn't there's a reality that like I shouldn't be here. So like they've got to get him settled into the game and then kind of let him kind of work his way into it. Because I think if he begins panicky or he feels the pressure, I don't think Kansas City will let up.
Yeah, my point's pretty similar actually. I think just dovetailing off the back of what you said, I think they've got to give Brock Purdy easy way out against pressure.
Yeah.
We know that Spags is going to have cooked up loads of crazy shit over the past couple of weeks. Kyle Shanahan would have done exactly the same thing. So that sort of cat and mouse battle is going to be one of the big keys of the game really overall. But like I said, he's going to have some protection plans in there as well as his plays, because he's got to get some some pressure off Purdy's back, and like I say, just have, like you said, really have some quick throws, have some easy ways out, because Spags is going to try and fry his brain and make those poor decisions turn into turnovers. So yeah, I'm kind of similar on lines to you, really.
Yeah, like I think early on, like I think those kind of that first quarter, it won't go in terms of deciding the game, but it could go a long way to like shaping the game, because I feel like if you can kind of beat what Spags has got in terms of he's going to bring out his best stuff for that early period, because Kyle Shanahan's so great at scripting plays and kind of play calling that he's going to have his best. For me, that's like a real kind of mini battle within it. Like if the 49ers can come through that, then they can settle into the game and get a rhythm. If they don't, then I think it becomes much more difficult, because it's so hard. I think, like, how many teams have kind of came back on the Chiefs this year? That's what I'd love to know. Like, how many teams have kind of chased down Kansas City, even though their offense hasn't run away? It's because like their defense doesn't really give much away to many teams at all. Like, you think they didn't score a single point in the second half 2 weeks ago, it didn't matter. So like I think the 49ers can't get into a habit of falling down too early, because then it becomes much harder to kind of stick to your game script, and kind of then might become more a pass heavy game. And as I said, like if you give Steve Spagnuolo the option of, am I going to let Christian McCaffrey take this game over, or am I going to leave it in the hands of Brock Purdy and hope I force a mistake? He's going to take the Brock Purdy option all day. So I think like whatever Kyle Shanahan's got for Brock Purdy, like it's going to have to be the best script he's called up in a Super Bowl ever, to get him settled in. I think the other guys, Garoppolo and Matt Ryan, had been around a while. Like they kind of understood the situation. Brock Purdy's still very young, so he's going to have to find a way of settling him into the game and kind of going to work after that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm sure he'll, like I said, I'm sure they've cooked up something. Willow, what do you reckon in terms of the 49ers, in terms of how they're going to win this game?
Yeah, I've gone on the other side of the ball, which is a bit different for me. I've gone sort of focus on the run defense. Past two games, sort of playoff games, they've let Aaron Jones, David Montgomery, and Jahmyr Gibbs just kind of run all over him for a bit. They've done a really good job of adjusting and coming back out in the second half of those games and kind of shutting that down. But you can't let you can't give up sort of 5, 6, 7 yards a run again, especially against a team as good as the Chiefs, who have as we've talked about already, the wherewithal to kind of see it out. They have the nous to be able to sort of manage that game from that point forward, which obviously the Packers and the Lions, being young teams in a sort of a situation they're not necessarily used to being in, don't necessarily. I'm going to sort of give myself a lap on here. So halfway through the second quarter of the NFC Championship game, I messaged my 49ers mate who has supported them forever, and I said, where does Chase Young line up on the defensive line? He said, well, he's usually lining up over the right tackle. And I looked at it, and that's literally the direction that the Lions were running basically all the time. They were just running to the right all the time. So I said, well, why don't they just move Nick Bosa over there? And he said, well, he's not really that great against the run. It's like literally 5 minutes later, the run basically stopped, and he had 2 sacks. It was, just give me a headset at this point. Just do that. They need to sort of figure out the run defense initially. If you can stop the Chiefs from trying to be balanced and just kind of make it all about those sort of off script throws. Yeah, they're going to come off because they're Mahomes and Kelsey and their sort of plethora of side characters, but they're not going to come off all the time, right? If that's all they've kind of got, they can't get anything again sort of on the ground. You're putting yourself in a position where, well, all of a sudden you've got the upper hand, and you can't have that coming out. You can't come out of the Usher show going, okay, we're down by 17 and they're running all over us. We just need to stop the run and we're going to be good because the Chiefs are too good at that. That's exactly the situation that they want. I don't think they can replicate what they've done in the last 2 weeks against the Chiefs, but if they can find a way to kind of stop them running early and put them in a position where it's just all passing, that's a losing position for a team with, ironically, the best quarterback. So that's as far as I can see it. That's the way you do it. It's all on Steve Wilks, is all I'm saying. If the Kyle Shanahan Andy Reid game comes down to Steve Wilks,
the one coordinator that we've never mentioned in any times that we talked about the Chiefs or the 49ers.
Does though, like I think if the Chiefs can kind of run early and get the run game going early, they won't stop. They won't go away from it. You think like last year's Super Bowl in the second half with Mahomes and his kind of dodgy ankle, they just ran all over Philadelphia. Like they just never stopped. It was kind of the odd pass here and there on kind of third and mediums, third and longs, but like by and large, they just ran the ball all over Philadelphia. Like, and I think Andy Reid said something before last year's Super Bowl saying, "Oh, it all starts up front with the offensive line. That's where you win these games." Like Kansas City, if they can run the ball, like then it becomes so much more difficult because the 49ers will average, like I think they're averaging around 4.5 yards per carry to opposing teams. If you're giving that up on first down, suddenly you're in second and medium, second and short. It's not going to win, like because they're good enough to, you know what I mean? Like you're going to have to, like basically on defense, it might come down to if they're calling a run play on first down, you got to blow that play up and suddenly leave them in second and 9, second and 10, second and long. From the 49ers' point of view, it's weird with San Francisco's defense. They got the personnel to do it. Like you look at it, they got really good players at every level. The last 2 weeks they haven't played great on defense, so I don't like. I don't know. It's a weird one because I feel like there's a performance in there, but they haven't played great, in the last 2 rounds of playoffs. So it's kind of feels hard to call. But if they don't stop the run, then it's going to be a long night for them.
Yeah, no, definitely. Let's look it over then to the other side. What about the Chiefs? How about their keys to victory? Will, we'll start with you. What do you reckon for the Chiefs? How are they going to win this game?
Are the Chiefs going to win this game? Well, just run the ball. No, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I can see, it's about getting a lead. The reason, as far as I'm concerned, the reason they beat the Ravens because they got themselves 2 scores up in about 10 minutes. They put the onus on Baltimore to kind of just sort of go, okay, Mister, you MVP, go and beat us, and it was just so much pressure to put on. If you're going to put it, we can talk all day about putting Brock Purdy under pressure, but as far as I'm concerned, the most pressure you can put him under is chasing a game against a team that just has the aura. If you put the Chiefs in a position where they're up 2 scores in the first quarter, the conversation shifts from what's the score going to be to how big's the score going to be. Not to say that the 49ers can't overcome sort of big leads. Literally their playoff run has been overcoming sort of deficits and coming from behind. Something that they didn't do at all in the regular season. It was all big wins or losses. So I don't not to put a tinfoil hat on it, but I wonder if they decided to let teams have a win to prove that they could overcome deficits themselves. But if the Chiefs can get themselves in a position where they're up, get the ball first, score 3 and out, get the ball second, score 3 and out. It's 14-0. You've got 6 minutes 6 minutes left in the first quarter. I appreciate this is very easier said than done, because it's the NFL against the best team in the NFC. But if one team's coming out trying to feel their quarterback into the game, and the other team is, we're trying to win our 3rd Super Bowl in 4 years. We've got that. We're here. Let's go, kind of thing. One team, if the Chiefs can start fast, I think that's where they win the game. If you give the 49ers a lead to chase down, I don't know if they're capable of doing it 3 games in a row, is what I'm saying. That may be a very simplistic way of looking at things, but that's where I sit on things at the moment.
Mm-hmm. And Tate, what about yourself? How about the Chiefs in this game?
They just got to, I think, kind of piggyback off what Thomas said, run the ball and manage this game. Because I think, and again, if they can do that and play with the lead, as I said, I think Brock Purdy is going to make some really good throws on Sunday, but he's also going to kind of potentially push one risk too far, or kind of take a chance that might not necessarily exist. And I think that's kind of going to be the key for me. Is I look at kind of turnovers always decide games. Mahomes might not make the spectacular throws that he did 5 years ago, but he don't really make any turnover-worthy plays. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't really put the ball in harm's way. Brock Purdy could make a spectacular play, but 2 plays later he could also throw a really bad interception. I think for me, like that's going to be the big thing with the Chiefs on defense is they're going to have to force an error or 2 from Brock Purdy because realistically, and again, I feel bad for saying it because he's played really well and he is a good quarterback. Like he's shown that over the last 2 years. Like he isn't, he was drafted clearly way too low. You know what I mean? Compared to what the production he's done. It's who do you trust to make a mistake more? George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, or Brock Purdy? Like you'd think Brock Purdy is more likely to make a mistake just because he's inexperienced. He isn't at this level, consistently over his career. He doesn't have so much kind of experience to lean on. I feel like that's going to be the deciding factor. I think you've got one quarterback who isn't going to throw like a really bad interception, but you've got one quarterback who chances are he could do something insane and then something terrible all in the same sequence of plays. And to be fair, he's kind of towed that tightrope all playoffs. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's kind of just violently swung between brilliance and kind of madness all in the same play, all in the same drive, really. So I feel like that's going to be, and they got away with it against Green Bay and Detroit. And again, maybe lady luck, inexperience, whatever. I don't know if they'll be able to do it a 3rd game in a row. So for me, like Kansas City's got to force, turnovers and errors from Brock Purdy.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think we've talked about that, haven't we, in terms of how highs and his lows, and I've mentioned about his bizarre decisions and bizarre throws and things like that.
Yeah.
That he gets away with. I mentioned it earlier today. I'm going to kind of go away from my point because you guys have covered it off already. I'm going to kind of mention that the Chiefs need to defend the run a lot better as well. We know how much Shanahan likes to come up with great run schemes and how, like you said before, they've got Christian McCaffrey, they've got Kyle Juszczyk, they've got Deebo Samuel who can run the ball as well, and they'll do some funky stuff. The Chiefs have had a really good defense, but it's their pass defense has been the leader of that. Their run defense has not been nearly as good. I think I remember it's something like 27th in terms of EPA. So that is obviously going to be a problem against Kyle Shanahan run team. So if they can shore up that, then they should have no problem really, because like I said, the pass defense has been really, really good. And outside of that, really, it's just about moments because in big games in the Super Bowls, we know the big moments that can turn the game. We've seen the helmet catch, Edelman's catch. Sorry, Willow. Cam Newton not diving on a fumble.
Yeah.
Marshawn not running at the one, all these sort of things. If Kansas City can lean their defense, they've got the guys who can come up, in terms of Mahomes, who can come up with a big moment or two, or on the defense in terms of forcing one on Purdy. So, yeah, that's where I kind of sit on that one. It's an intriguing game all around, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's do you know what it is? It's so kind of, it's funny how like seasons and narratives change. If this game was played on October 31st, just for argument's sake, like slap bang in the middle of the season, I think everyone to a man would say, oh, the 49ers will win this game. And it's kind of like, even though they've won their last two games in the playoffs, it's like, I don't know, a lot of people, it's because it's the Chiefs and, they've been here and they've done it and they just know how to get over the line. It's like, I don't know if we really fancy the 49ers. I think for some, like, Christian McCaffrey's got to be the MVP. Like, if they're going to win it, like, he needs to have the best game of his career. You know what I mean? And if he can, then I think if the Chiefs don't stop him, then, like, Kyle Shanahan won't go away from it. So, like, it feels, do you know what it is? It's really difficult to kind of predict how it's going to go. I just feel like two very evenly matched teams, one with like the experience and the superstar quarterback, but then one with like the superstar everything else. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like, it's tough to call this one.
It is. It should be a really good game. Let's move on then into the final section and just finish off with some predictions, really. In the same sort of style that we've been all season long with these predictions, which I'll try and do a tot up next week when we come back for the Super Bowl review. Tay, we'll come back to you. What's your prediction for this game?
I'll go. I wrote it down, but I've kind of obviously now doing this. I've changed my mind slightly. I'll go 23-17 to the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs will win, but 23-17 to Kansas City.
Mm-hmm. Any kind of prop bet that we can get out of you as well?
Oh, do you know what? Just for the sake of it, Travis Kelce catches 2 touchdowns, goes over 100 yards, Super Bowl MVP, proposes to Taylor Swift on the podium. Roger Goodell's there with the mic. Just go with the whole hog on that one.
Roger Goodell's got the ring in his jacket pocket to pull out because we always need a result. Will, what about yourself?
She's got a gig in Tokyo like the day before or like the same day or something stupid, and as I gather, she's going to be flying back from Tokyo to the Super Bowl. Either like the biggest away day fan of all, just love it, mate. Just absolutely love it. It's like crushing Stellas on the flight back. Or she just really likes Travis Kelce. It could go either way. I just want to be different. So I'm going with the 49ers to win 28-24. I'm not so the last 2 times the 49ers have been in the Super Bowl, I've gone to my mate Adams, and both times they've been defeated, and I've had to sit there awkwardly as he just tries to just like comprehend what's happened. I'm not doing that this time around, so the Jonah is out the door. I've been fully all in on the idea of it just being the Chiefs because it's the Chiefs for the entire postseason, and it wasn't until I actually sat down and sort of looked and went, man, I really did forget just what a team the 49ers have been this season and have been. I mean, like you mentioned at the start of the show, I know 3 people on this show right now who would kill for the 5-season run that the 49ers have had. Like, yeah, absolutely. You give me that every day of the week. I don't care if we win or like win anything out of it. I just want to see us winning games. Brock Purdy's got come under a lot of fire over the last forever basically. But I know that wins aren't a quarterback statistic. But he's only lost like 5 games as a starter. Like that's pretty good going across 2 seasons. Like So yeah, I'll go with the 49ers on the basis that they are the better team, pound for pound. But you can't escape that aura. You can't escape that that feeling. And if it is close and it is third quarter, you're looking at it and you're going, who's going to be the one to make the one play? And it's going to be the guy who always makes the play. But I'll stick with it. I'll go. I've got Carl Juszczyk to go for 50 receiving yards and a touchdown. I seem to remember the last Super Bowl. He was like the best player.
Yeah,
he was incredible. It was like incredible for like quarter. And I just kept going, where is it? Was this guy a fullback? He was like, yeah, he is. It's like, what? So yeah, that's where I'm going. And I would really like them to win it. Not for Shanahan, but for my friend Adam, who got me into this nonsense. And then next season, the Falcons win it. And we're the only people in our friend group who haven't seen our teams win a Super Bowl yet. So yeah, that's where I'm at. He doesn't watch this, so I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's where I'm.
Fair enough. I was going to give Adam a shout out and say, I hope he does it for Adam as well. But since he doesn't watch it, then so yeah, for me, I'm going to say, I've already really said it, but yeah, Travis Kelce's going to score a touchdown. It's kind of obvious. Not because of some wild conspiracy that people are dreaming up about politics or otherwise, or the NFL. I just think it's the sort of thing that the Chiefs will want to do. It's the sort of thing that Andy Reid will enjoy. I think he'll be cooking some red zone play just to lean into the storyline, I think. So, yeah, Travis Kelce scored a TD. I think I've got the Chiefs to win it 24-20, just because, for all the reasons that we said it, really, they've just been there and done it. They've got the T-shirt, and here we are for another one, unfortunately. So, yeah, that'll round us out. And we'll obviously be back next week after the Super Bowl. We'll be recording on Monday. So we've got a Super Bowl review, and then we'll take a break from the pod for a little while we move towards draft season. But we'll still be here with our written articles over at touchdown.co.uk and over on the Twitter at the Touchdown NFL. So like and subscribe, keep following for our content. We've got plenty coming throughout draft season. But yeah, that'll do us. We've got one podcast to go, gentlemen. It's been a good one. And yeah, like I say, thanks for you guys for all watching with us all the time. And yeah, we'll see you next week. Have a great Super Bowl.